Under the intense gaze of that formidable being, a cold sweat broke out across the protagonist's skin. The crushing realization hit hard. He was standing right before elite powerhouses of Tier 9 and beyond. In their presence, even a Tier 7 Grandmaster seemed utterly insignificant. As a mere Tier 2 cultivator, the gap between them felt as vast as the distance between heaven and earth. Anxiety gripped him as he realized that if an expert of this caliber ever targeted Star City, his current self would be completely powerless to protect anyone. He felt deeply that he couldn't save a single soul. This bleak reality fueled a fierce determination within him to grow stronger. He needed to climb the ranks through Tier 3, Tier 4, Tier 8, and Tier 9, until he ultimately reached the King Realm. Sooner or later, he would conquer that legendary level. Releasing his hold on the golden feather, Grandmaster Qin noted that even with the Lord of the 10,000 monsters showing itself, the origins of this golden-feathered bird ran incredibly deep. The creature issued a parting warning, telling Grandmaster Qin to watch his back before swiftly vanishing into thin air. Watching the spot where it disappeared, Grandmaster Qin recalled the ancient pact binding the Lord of the 10,000 monsters and humanity, which strictly forbade the beast from launching reckless attacks. Because of this treaty, there was no need to worry about it bullying the younger generation. Despite the chaotic interruption caused by the Lord of the 10,000 monsters, the training camp concluded on a standard note, and the students began preparing for their departure. Walking out of the camp gates, the protagonist reflected on how a whole month had already flown by since he left home. He knew his uncle and aunt must be sick with worry. Just then, his two former peers approached him, thrilled to see him again. One of them remarked that after his performance at this training camp, his name would undoubtedly echo throughout Star City. The other chimed in, expressing hope that the protagonist wouldn't hold a grudge over their past disagreements. The protagonist could only sigh, asking if they truly thought he was that petty. He admitted that if they hadn't brought it up, he would have completely forgotten about those old issues. The moment they stepped outside, representatives from the city lord were already waiting to receive them. The officials commended the students for their rigorous training and announced that the city lord estate had organized a grand banquet filled with rewards to celebrate their return, urging everyone to attend. The crowd responded with excitement, voicing their gratitude for the city lord's immense hospitality. The protagonist, however, felt a wave of disappointment. He had absolutely no desire to attend a crowded banquet. His only wish was to rush straight home to his uncle and aunt. Meanwhile, guests were already streaming into the Star City City Lord estate. Inside the cavernous, opulent banquet hall, the atmosphere was lively with chatter. Among the attendees were the protagonist's uncle and aunt, who were escorted to a table by an attentive waiter. Once seated, the couple felt an immediate wave of discomfort as they stared at the lavish spread of food before them. Nearby, a woman dressed in elegant attire loudly wondered aloud whose parents those two were. Another woman sneered, questioning since when ordinary laborers were allowed into such a prestigious gathering. A man joined in the mockery, questioning why the staff was letting just anyone into the hall. Overhearing the whispers, the aunt anxiously asked her husband if their modest clothes were bringing shame upon their nephew. Her husband could only reply that they had done their best, as these were the absolute finest clothes they owned. Their self-doubt was interrupted when Principal Li Chengshan approached their table, politely asking if they were indeed the protagonist's guardians. He introduced himself as the head of the No. 1 high school. The couple quickly stood up, nervously but respectfully greeting the principal. Principal Li Chengshan chuckled warmly, telling them there was absolutely no need to be so tense. Just as Principal Li Chengshan reached out to shake the uncle's hand, Wu Lingxian, the president of the Star City Martial Artists Association, suddenly pushed past him to greet them first. With a bright smile, the president introduced himself and praised the protagonist as the most promising genius he had ever encountered in his entire life. Flustered but respectful, the uncle scratched his head and politely returned the president's greeting. The wealthy woman watched the scene unfold in utter disbelief. She simply could not comprehend what was happening before her eyes. The principal of the No. 1 high school and the president of the Martial Arts Association themselves were greeting those ordinary-looking people with immense warmth and respect. Nearby, a man muttered in confusion, wondering who this Su Hong person was and if there was a hidden, powerful family with the surname Su inside Star City. Meanwhile, over at the table reserved for the city's most affluent elite, Li Chinga's father remarked that the city lord's son was truly magnificent. Possessing the barbarian god body, there was no doubt in his mind that the young man had effortlessly claimed the top spot at the training camp. Wang Ni, the city lord and father of Wang Tiantuo, offered a modest smile. He countered that the Xiao and Ling families were equally enviable. One family boasted the only spirit master among the city's youth, while the other possessed a terrifying level of comprehension, having mastered the A-rank flying swan soaring cloud step movement technique while still at the Tier 1 initial stage. The father of Xiao Yan immediately chimed in, agreeing with the sentiment. He boasted that compared to the barbarian god body, a spirit master possessed far greater strength, making it highly probable that his son, Xiao Yan, was the true champion of the camp. Lin Xinghei's father chuckled, proudly redirecting the attention to his own son's unmatched speed. He claimed that before the overlord body or spiritual telekinesis could even react, his son's movement technique would have already secured victory. Hearing this, Xiao Yan's father frowned deeply, while Wang Tiantuo's father flared up in anger. He shouted that such claims were pure nonsense because his son's raw destructive power far surpassed that of any ordinary human, ensuring that Wang Tiantuo took the number 1 spot. Xiao Yan's father merely laughed at the outburst, mocking him by asking if he realized how exceedingly rare a spirit master was. He confidently stated that his son had the potential to become a king. Lin Xinghei's father remained unfazed, asserting that of all the martial arts beneath the heavens, speed was the only thing that could never be broken, leaving his son without a true rival. Not to be outdone, Wang Tiantuo's father fiercely declared that his son would completely crush both of their children. Watching the escalating argument from a distance, Principal Li Chengshan turned to President Wu Lingxian and asked if he was going to step in and stop them. Wu Lingxian scowled, asking if the principal really expected a single, unmarried woman like her to break up a petty squabble among men bragging about their children. She admitted she might not be able to control her own temper and end up punching them instead. Besides, she noted that the moment the protagonist arrived, all of their loud bragging would instantly turn to silence. Principal Li Chengshan looked puzzled, questioning why Wu Lingxian held the protagonist in such high regard when the young man was only at the Tier 1 initial stage. With a knowing smile, Wu Lingxian simply replied that it was a matter of a woman's intuition. Suddenly, the tense atmosphere was broken when an attendant rushed into the hall, loudly announcing to the city lord that the special transport bus from the training camp had finally arrived. Upon hearing the news, the city lord proudly announced to the entire gathering that the pride of Star City had returned, inviting everyone to join him outside to welcome them back. 3 luxury vehicles pulled up to the front of the estate, carrying Lin Xing, Xiao Yan, and Wang Tiantuo. The moment Xiao Yan's father caught sight of his son, he became deeply distressed. Seeing how noticeably thinner and darker the boy had become made his chest tighten with worry. Lin Xinghei's father was equally alarmed, demanding to know how his son had sustained injuries that had ruined his handsome face. Overhearing this, the city lord interjected, muttering that if Lin Xinghei's face was considered ruined, he couldn't even find the words to describe the battered state of his own son. Xiao Yan spoke up, asking aloud who it was that had advised Wang Tiantuo to never, under any circumstances, admit defeat. Lin Xing added that he, on the other hand, had surrendered quickly, which was the only reason he walked away with minimal bruising. The 3 fathers were stunned, demanding to know if their sons had actually all been defeated, and who could possibly possess the power to beat them. However, Wang Tiantuo's father froze as he suddenly sensed the energy radiating from the trio. All 3 of them had successfully broken through to become Tier 2 martial artists. Xiao Yan's father was completely baffled. He wondered how his son, now a Tier 2 martial artist equipped with spiritual telekinesis, could still suffer a loss. Lin Xinghei's father was equally bewildered, asking if some sort of monster had suddenly emerged within Star City. The 3 young martial artists responded with absolute calm, explaining that the person who beat them was physically stronger than Wang Tiantuo, faster than Lin Xing, and wielded spiritual telekinesis that far surpassed Xiao Yan's. They told their fathers to simply look for themselves, because that man was an absolute monster. The students began filing out of the bus in a hurried rush. Despite being covered in bandages and bruises, they immediately lined up with deep respect, making an orderly path to clear the way for the protagonist's exit. Stepping off the bus, he couldn't help but frown, muttering to himself that they were making the entire situation incredibly awkward. All he really wanted was to go home. He felt certain that his uncle and aunt had already prepared a delicious meal and were waiting for his return at this very moment. To his surprise, he suddenly spotted his uncle and aunt waving excitedly as they rushed toward him. When his aunt lost her footing and began to tumble forward, he instantly activated his telekinesis, catching her in midair to gently stabilize her and prevent a nasty fall. He hurried to her side immediately, anxiously asking if she was hurt. His uncle looked on in awe, asking what kind of incredible martial art he had just used because it was absolutely spectacular. His aunt smiled warmly and reassured him that she was perfectly fine, just a little startled by the sudden floating sensation. Tears of absolute joy welled up in his uncle's eyes as he praised the protagonist, marveling at how immensely strong he had become. His aunt chimed in, confessing that for the past month, they had both been practically worried to death. The protagonist smiled gently, comforting them by saying that he was finally back and completely safe, so they no longer had anything to worry about. Meanwhile, the city lord stood frozen as a violent tremor ran through his entire body. He stared at the scene in utter disbelief. The protagonist was a spirit master, and remarkably, a tier 2 spirit master at that. It finally made sense why their own elite children had been so thoroughly defeated. Even Wu Lingxian and Principal Li Chengshan were completely stunned by the revelation. The two began bickering instantly, tossing blame back and forth as to why neither of them had mentioned this crucial piece of information sooner. Wu Lingxian muttered that she had no idea the protagonist was actually a spirit master. Principal Li Chengshan shot back in exasperation, pointing out that he was only asking her because he assumed she already knew. It took them a moment to realize that, in reality, neither of them had a single clue about the boy's true power. Within moments, President Wu Lingxian was gleefully shouting into her phone, daring anyone to try and snatch her position away from her now. She loudly warned her rival to watch out, threatening to bring the protagonist along to beat up their disciples if they crossed her. Principal Li Chengshan turned toward the crowd with a triumphant grin, proudly declaring that the number 1 high school was about to rise to unprecedented heights. He laughed, wondering how anyone would dare compete with him for funding and resources next year. Witnessing this incredible display, the onlookers immediately scrambled for information on the young genius, causing a sudden frenzy of phone calls across the courtyard. Some began making arrangements to purchase incredibly lavish gifts for the protagonist right away. Others decided on the spot that they had found the ultimate match for their daughters, urgently commanding their staff to bring the young women to the city lord estate immediately and ensuring they were dressed in their absolute finest. Seizing the moment, the city lord stepped forward and pulled out a reward, presenting it directly to the young man. He introduced himself formally as Wang Ni, the city lord of Star City, before loudly proclaiming the protagonist as the undisputed number 1 genius of their city, calling him a true dragon among men. He handed over the title deed to a luxurious villa along with 3 million in cash, explaining that this was the official bonus prepared for the training camp's top finisher, politely requesting that the young man accept it. Seeing this unfold, the surrounding crowd could only curse silently at the blatant display of cunning. They wondered since when such a massive bonus even existed, considering everyone fully expected the city lord's own son to win the top spot just moments prior. The onlookers couldn't help but wonder if the city lord honestly thought his own son was lacking in villas and cash. Others quickly realized that the city lord had clearly noticed the protagonist's humble background and instantly fabricated these top-tier prizes on the spot. He was proving to be an exceptionally clever old fox, moving with terrifying speed to secure an advantage. With a bright smile, the city lord added that as the primary talent of Star City, the protagonist should never hesitate to reach out if he ever needed anything in the future, promising to assist him to the absolute best of his abilities. He then extended his hand, offering a formal handshake. The protagonist stared down at the open hand, processing the clear and deliberate attempt to pull him into the city lord's inner circle. He realized that turning down the gesture would undoubtedly offend a powerful figure, but fully aligning himself with the city lord might leave him trapped, unable to refuse whatever demanding favors might be asked of him down the line.
The chapter ends here. Watch out for our upcoming uploads. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and click the notification bell so you'll always be updated on our future videos.